Amma ba'd. Continuing on with our series of the people, the righteous people of the past. There's a young boy, he says, Kuntu ibn 17 sana wa hajajtu ma'a walidi. I was 17 years old and I did Hajj with my father Thabit. فرأيت الناس يزدحم حول الرجل. I saw a group of people congregate around a man. فسألت أبي من هذا الرجل. I asked my father, who's this man? فقال لي هذا الرجل قد صحب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. My boy, don't worry about the name. This man has spent moments in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فدخلت بين الناس. I broke through the ranks of people. حتى كنت أمامه فسمعته يقول سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول من يرد الله به خيرا يفقهه في الدين. He says, I broke through the ranks of people until I sat in front of this man that my father told me, spent moments in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And this man says, I heard the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam say, whomever Allah wants good for, then Allah gives them the knowledge of fiqh. The person narrating the hadith is Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu. The boy is Nu'man, the father is Thabit. You know him as Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. The effect of spending moments in the company of the righteous. Alexander the Great reigns over 2 million square miles. Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu anhu reigns over 2.2 million square miles. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu is nurtured in the color of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, while Alexander the Great is nurtured in the darkness or the shadow of Aristotle himself. The company of the great make others great. They say, men make men, diamonds cut diamonds, men make men. Or women as well. Not a sexist statement. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi is a remarkable figure. He's born in the year 80 Hijri. He passes away in the year 150 Hijri, the same year Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah is born. The last Sahabi to pass away is in the year 110 Hijri. Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu is the last companion to pass away in the city of Basra. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi sees at least 6 Sahaba and narrates from at least 1 or 2 of them. Out of the major Imams, he is the only Tabi'i. Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi is born in the year 93, 95 or 97 according to different opinions. And he's the only one that is an actual Tabi'i that's seen a Sahabi. Though he is from the Sighar of Sahaba, he is from the junior Sighar Tabi'in. He's from the junior Tabi'in. He's a Tabi'i nevertheless. It's very famous about Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi when he talks and he speaks about the Tabi'in and his chain of narrations. For he studied under Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, who studied under Alqama, who studied under Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, who studied under Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But when he would be talking with the other Tabi'in and a discussion or a opinion of a Tabi'i would come, he would say, Hum rijal wa nahnu rijal. If he's a Tabi'i, I'm also a Tabi'i. Now, Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi is unique amongst the other A'immah because he's the only one out of the other ones. Now, there isn't only 4 Imams. There's a ton of them, right? But there's 4 major ones. There's Dawud Zahiri, there's Yahya bin Ma'in, there's Awza'i, there's a bunch of them. But from the 4 major ones, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, and Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, they all as children were nurtured in the deen. Imam Shafi was a Mufti of Makkah Mukarram when he was a teenager. Our teenagers today are making TikToks and giving fatwas, but not the same. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi was a businessman by trade. and a damn honest one. It comes about in his life, in his sawanih, that one time he had one of his managers sell one of the garments, and there was a defect in it. So he came back and he said, "Where's the garment?" They said, "Oh, I sold it." He said, "For how much?" He said, "Oh, for even more than the price it was for." He said, "Go get that person back." He tells them, "I'm sorry, there's a garment in here, and the person was supposed to have you inspect it properly." He said, "No, I inspected it, but no, he was supposed to tell you there's a defect and give you a reduced price." And the person said, "No, I'm okay with whatever the price is. I'm all right, Imam Sahib." He said, "No, it's not okay. The garment is for free. The garment is for free. And brother, you are fired." Today we would say, "Brother, will you have a promotion?" Jeb kati, mashallah. They say that if you go buy something from a non-Muslim, the box says 40 pieces. Inshallah, you'll get 43 or 45, 2, 3 extra pieces. But you go to a Muslim and you buy that same box for 40 pieces, maybe 38, 37 inside. Few here and there that you'll get in the akhirah, inshallah. Honesty, right? The honesty is our integrity is the bottom line. Anyhow, Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayh, he becomes a scholar later in his life. He was a businessman, and that's why, and Shaykh Arsalan, with all respects I say this, that the Hanafi madhab when it comes to business and tijara is the most defined, and according to more than the Hanbali or Shafi'i or Maliki, maybe in the other days they can come and take swipes at Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayh. But for today, when it comes to the realm of business, he excelled in this because this was his craft himself. So he composes it better than anyone else. So moving forward. Later in his life, he was someone who was an individual who loved philosophy, ilm al-kalam. And he would debate. Aqidah was his main discussion. And in those days, someone came and asked him a question. He was like the Zakir Naik, the Ahmadidat. Someone came and asked him a masala. He said, "I don't know. Go to the masjid. Ahmad bin Abi Sulaiman is over there." Ahmad bin Abi Sulaiman was black. He said, "He's over there. Go and ask him." The lady goes, asks him a question, masala. On her way back, she says, "Sheikh, by the way, the answer is this." And he said, and it knocked me in my heart, that she taught me something. One time, there was a woman. She had a bracelet on the ground, so she was pointing towards it. So he thought she dropped it. So he grabbed it up to give it to her, and she smiled and she said, "Now you have to find the owner." The masala of luqta, right? Something that you drop, they have to find the owner for 40 days. It's not finders, keepers, losers, weeper. It's finders, keepers become seekers. He's like, "She tricked me." Back in the day, the 1800s, this is for a side note. The women, if they wanted to court a man, they would drop their handkerchief. And when they dropped the handkerchief, pick it up and say, "Ma'am, you dropped something." And she would respond, "Did I?" And that would show that she was interested, and that's how the conversation began. Nowadays, you can just slide into anyone's DMs. So Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi, brilliant man. I'm going to say 1-2 incidents about his brilliance, and I'll wrap it up over there. So he goes and he excels in the field of fiqh, and he's a very interesting and unique way of thinking. He's the first individual who begins to, generally speaking amongst the ulama and the scholars at that time, if a masala came that existed, then they would answer that masala. But he would go and come with hypothetical masalas. I don't know where the hawala of this is, but hopefully, inshallah, I can find it, or one of the mashayikh can find it. But I remember as a kid, I remembered one of the stories that they had mentioned. That, you know how you have these test tube babies? They came up with a concept or an idea that if a person was to leave some fluid on a tissue and someone else was to use it and they were expecting a child, whose child would it be? Even though obviously scientifically that concept doesn't work. But how far ahead they were thinking. If a person's hand was cut off, is it permissible for the doctor, if it becomes possible later on for them to reattach the limb, is it permissible for the doctor to reattach the limb and permissible for that person to have that limb reattached? He had a council of 40 scholars, specialists in different fields. Abu Yusuf in fiqh, Muhammad Shaybani in lexicography, Fudayl bin Iyad, and different scholars who would come together and they would expound on masail. It wasn't just one person sitting up there and saying, I think it's this or it is this. I'll tell you two incidents of his intellect and the intellect of those around him. One time a woman came and she put an apple in front of him. He was teaching a class, he takes the apple, he cuts it in half. She says, Jazakallah khair. Sheikh, what just happened? What is this going on? Give you an Apple, iPhone, what is this? Don't worry. No, Sheikh, tell us. He said, she asked me a question, I answered it. We just saw how she put an apple there. He said she was so shy. She said, I'm seeing red and yellow, the color of the apple. And I understood that she's asking how did she become pure, so I cut it in half, basically when you see the whiteness. He's answering a masala that deals with our sisters. In the most intelligent way you can think of. And also the adab of the way the woman presented the question as well. And sometimes people would come to try to confuse Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. They would go and they would ask really strange questions. So someone asked them, they asked the ulama, they said, Sheikh, what is the ruling of a person? This individual does not desire Jannah. They're not scared of Jahannam. They pray salah and they don't do sajda. They eat meat, which Allah's name hasn't been said. They love fitna. They run away from the mercy of Allah. They dislike the inevitable, haqq. And they testify for things they have not seen. This person looks like a very bad individual. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah said, this man's a good Muslim. He said, how? He doesn't desire Jannah because he desires the pleasure of Allah. For the one who seeks Allah, Jannah is not the goal. Allah is the goal. He's not scared of Jahannam is because the fear of Allah trumps everything else. This is the makhluk, the khaliq is greater. He eats what Allah's name hasn't been set upon. He eats fish. You don't need to do dibah fish. He runs away from the mercy of Allah. He runs away from rain. He loves fitna. He loves his wife and children and wealth. Allah calls it all fitna. He prays without doing sajda. He's praying salatul janazah. He gives testimony to things he hasn't seen. He gives testimony to Allah and His Messenger, things he hasn't seen. And he dislikes haqq, the inevitable. وَاعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls it's the inevitable, the certainty, something that is yaqeen, that is the haqq. And the guy says, man, blown away. So because of this intelligence, they wanted him to be, the Khalifa wanted Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi to be the Chief Justice of the entire Muslim world. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi, and he worked closely with the government. He's one of the architects of Baghdad. He was an architect as well. Khalifa Mansur had him be one of the architects. So Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi said, I'm not qualified. The Khalifa said, you're a liar. He said, look, either I'm speaking the truth, I'm not qualified, therefore I shouldn't be the judge. Or either you're speaking the truth and I'm a liar, and I am qualified, but a liar should not be the judge. And he was put into prison. And some say he passed away over there. All the 4 imams went to jail. All of the 4 imams spent some time in jail, some time in prison. Imam Shafi'i as well, right, Sheikh? You can correct me on the Imam Shafi'i part. No? No, Imam Shafi'i didn't, because you have the Shafi'i right here. So Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullah, Imam Abu Hanifa for sure. Imam Shafi'i did not. Or we're not sure Imam Sheikh Al-Sadan can communicate on that. He's our Sheikh Shafi'i here. Alhamdulillah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to have the zeal and the love for knowledge the way Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah did. May May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those who spend company amongst the righteous and the salaha. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those whose hearts are illuminated with nur. And may Allah make us amongst those whose hearts are attached to the masjid. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.